Hello and welcome to our special broadcast as we eagerly await the inauguration of Nigeria's president. Some state governors and indeed all members of the legislative houses in Abuja and across the country will also be participating in this exercise. And they'll be expected to steer the affairs of this nation for the next 4 years. You're most welcome. I am Ladi Akiridoluale.
And I'm Ijoma Onyato. We're reaching you live from our amphitheater. That's the amphitheater of Channels Television's global headquarters right here in Lagos. And we promise you a robust coverage of the people, the politics, and the politicians on the eve of May the 29th, Nigeria's political date. That's how we like to say, with
Indeed.
history. Yeah.
Indeed, it's been 20 years of uninterrupted democracy. And if you ask some people, they'll tell you, is it 20 years already since the handover to a civilian administration led by the then President Olusegun Obasanjo on the 29th of May 1999. What a day that was. And it was celebrated with all the trappings and the things you can imagine that come with such a major handover. There's been relative progress since then with the provision of infrastructure nationwide, agricultural investment, as well as many economic strides. But all these have sometimes been overshadowed by insurgency, criminality, crime and kidnappings, as well as high unemployment figures cutting across many states of the Federation, leaving many wondering what the next steps indeed should be.
That's right, Laddie, what the next step should be indeed. And that's what we want to talk about. But this year's inauguration is low-key, as they've been saying. That's at least for tomorrow. But then we have a more elaborate lineup of activities on June the 12th. But beyond the celebrations, many would like to know, what should the government prioritize in the next 4 years? And then quickly, too. On our show tonight, we'll be debating these key issues, as well as the much talked about promises of the administration. One of the issues which got a lot of concern, a lot of Nigerians concerned, was the issue of security. So from kidnapping and then banditry and then abductions to the carnage caused by Boko Haram and communal clashes. Some say the security situation in the country is worse than it's ever been. Well, we'll take a look at that tonight.
Indeed. But before we do that, we'll take a look at the last 4 years of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, starting with one of the most prominent items on his party's manifesto in 2015, the safety of lives and property.
We face enormous challenges. Insecurity.
President Muhammadu Buhari pledging to fight insecurity at his inauguration in 2015.
We are going to tackle them head on.
But the last 4 years has seen Nigeria battling terrorism in the northeast and all geopolitical zones of the country having one security challenge or the other. While the military claimed it had decimated and pushed back members of the Boko Haram sect, the last 4 years has witnessed pockets of attacks in the northeast, especially on soft targets and military ammunitions and personnel. The kidnap of the Dapchi schoolgirls and some aid workers suggests that the insurgents are still on ground in the region. In the country's north-central, the military has succeeded in reducing the crisis between farmers and herders. However, communal clashes have become the order of the day, especially in Benue, Kaduna, Plateau, Nasarawa and Taraba states. Armed banditry made an inroad into the northwestern part of the country, claiming several lives in Zamfara and Sokoto states.
All those people with all the cash.
Nigerians have also had to deal with the rising cases of kidnapping for ransom and ritual, assassination and cybercrimes all over the nation. Some experts feel the present administration has not paid the required attention to these security challenges.
People expected it to be better than how they met it pre-2015. In fact, the security they inherited was on the upswing in 2015. Though it was bad during the previous administration, but you know that towards the end of that administration, after they postponed that election for 6 weeks, there was offensive within which they recovered a lot of territories. And when the administration came in, they carried on with that momentum. There was a momentum to late 2015. That time they declared technically defeated of the Boko Haram. Then 2015, mid 2015 or 16, things began to take another dimension.
But as the president pledges the oath of allegiance to Nigerians on May 29, 2019, there are expectations of the All Progressive Congress-led government.
There are people who think they don't matter, but they matter so much. I'll give you an instance. In the North, our traditional institutions in the North are very important. If we don't get them involved, we cannot solve this problem. The earlier we bring them to the table to help us, the better for us. Secondly, the issue of community policing and state police should be on the table. It should be signed as in yesterday. The governors should know how to deal with this. These are the things we should discuss. If there are issues we think can affect the issue of state police, we can find a way to go around it and deal with it. And it's not left for the military alone, the police alone, the army alone, the customs alone. The earlier we bring all the stakeholders, the better for us.
Perhaps the government and security agencies under the watch of President Buhari can take the advice of one of their own.
No bullet or bomb can eradicate an ideology. Thus, additional training in areas like psychological operations and perception management, hacking and computer instructions, encryption, decryption will be essential as future conflict will be fought in the information domain.
The challenge for the government in the next 4 years is to match its words with action, turning campaign promises into tangible results by finding and applying the best approach to quell the insecurity across the country. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
Okay, so setting the stage, and now let's introduce our panel to take a look at this very big issue, security. From our Abuja studios, we're being joined by Mr. Femi Adesina, the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. We also have there one of the Chibok parents, and that's talking about Mr. John Bassa. Both of you are welcome to the program. Here in Lagos, we have a retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Mr. Tunji Kolkrick. Thank you so much for being with us. Now,
let's not forget our studio audience.
Oh,
Remember,
I'm sorry. I do apologize.
Yeah.
I should have started actually from here in Lagos.
Yeah.
In our audience here, we have a cross-section ranging from labor to NGOs and civil society. We have economists.
And we also have students as well.
Students there, political
That's right.
scientists. And so, I mean, there's a broad mix of people who will be having this argument today. But let's get the argument going. Mr. Adesina, you listened to that report. Is it a fair comment on how this administration has done in the last 4 years in terms of security?
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Yes, security is a challenge for the country. It was a challenge in 2015 when the administration came. It's still a challenge today, but I think to a lesser extent in certain areas. In 2015, the most prevalent security issue was insurgency. But today, if you want to be honest and if you want to be truthful, you agree that the insurgency is not at the same intensity today as it was in 2015. But then, there are other frontiers of insecurity that have opened up. Banditry, kidnapping, farmers' husband clashes, and some others. They were not that prevalent in 2015. So you find more frontiers of challenges opening up over the years. But the one that the administration met in 2015, to a large extent, it has made gains. It's not completely eradicated, but it's not as virulent as it was in 2015. In 2015, you could have bombs going off as many times as possible in a day, 6, 8 times in different parts of the country. That is virtually gone. or is very few and far between. If it happens, maybe isolated cases. That used to be a daily occurrence many times in 2015. Boko Haram was in northeast, it was in northwest, it was in north central, it was in the federal capital, it was at Kogi. And you could imagine that from Kogi it was going into southwest, from southwest to south-south, and the whole country was covered. What will then have remained of the country? But the administration took the battle to Boko Haram till it got to a point where it could confidently say, yes, this insurgency is degraded, this insurgency is technically defeated. It's not eradicated, it's not wiped out, but the intensity is not as it was in 2015.
Yeah, Mr.
Now you have other frontiers of insecurity.
Sorry, Mr. Adesina, if you can hear me, before you go on, let me just take you up on something you were talking about earlier. Yes, you talked about the rate of insurgency not being as it was, and we're going to ask our live audience here what they think about security today. But when you talked about banditry, looking at a state like Nasarawa alone, with the kind of weapons that they're recovering, for instance, 127 firearms, 2,235 ammunition found in one state alone. What's the government doing about the rate at which arms are in the hands of the wrong people?
Well, it's also not a recent phenomenon. It's an old phenomenon in the country. If you recall, even during the Olusegun Obasanjo days, there was a committee set up on retrieving small arms from wrong hands. So it shows us that it's an old phenomenon. In fact, since after the Civil War, you had always had arms in wrong hands. Today, maybe it has escalated, and it is the duty of government, according to the Constitution, to maintain law and order, to guarantee safety of life and property. And one of the ways it will do that is by getting small arms, particularly from wrong hands. So
the question is, Mr. Adesina, the question is if you are satisfied with what your government has done so far to mop up arms in the hands of the wrong people. Are you satisfied with what your government has done?
You can only be satisfied when you see a de-escalation in the rate of these attacks. As long as the attacks are there, you can't be satisfied. No one can be. The president is not. So I can't be. The president himself has said it. He still said it yesterday in a meeting with Northern Governors Forum. He's not happy with the security situation in the country. Nobody is.
All right, let me come to Lagos and take retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Mr. Colcrick. You've heard Mr. Adesina. Two key things have come out from what he'd said, that the problem that was on ground when they came has been largely contained, but other problems have since sprouted. Then secondly, the issue of small arms, which is directly related to all these other problems that have since sprouted. Are you satisfied with what has happened?
Well, I'm certainly not satisfied that we still have large catches of arms in the hands of the wrong people. But nevertheless, I cannot less agree with Mr. Femi Adesina that a lot has actually been done with regards to ensuring that some of these arms are recovered. And like you said, I mean, you gave the statistics of the recovered arms. And I want to also say that the government is actually doing, I mean, much more to ensure that these arms are mopped up, I mean, significantly.
But then if we talk about what has been recovered, even those who are doing the recovery always say that what they've recovered is a very small fraction of what is going through. And we see evidence of that from those who come back and give eyewitness reports or talk about their encounter with some of these people, either in terms of banditry or in terms of, I mean, even officers of the police tend to take a back seat. They retreat when they see the kind of firearms these people have. It's in that context that I'm asking, is enough being done? Because if this quality and caliber of arms are in the wrong hands, then if you squeeze here, then they will simply move elsewhere, which seems to have been what has happened with even the insurgency.
Yes, I want to sincerely believe that there's still need for a more holistic approach, really.
What do you mean?
We're talking about a better approach,
particularly with regards to application of technology. I mean, we're talking about our borders, we're talking about
so we've been talking about our borders for decades. Yeah. And whenever we talk about security, they go, oh, our borders are porous, as though there's nothing we can do about them.
Obviously, there's much we can do about that. But the truth is this, that we've got to actually, apply technology to ensure that we police our borders effectively. In terms of borders that are spread wide all over, I don't think we have enough human resources to cover them effectively. But technology can really help, where we can actually deploy technology to know movements and be able to send forces directly to where some of these arms are being brought in.
I was thinking of throwing it to the audience to say what they think about this security challenge. From Labour, if we have the Labour representatives, if you want to talk about what you think the security situation is and what the government should do better, looking at where we're coming from. From Labour? Yes.
Everybody seems to be hesitant because this is security.
Out, then everybody else will
while they're thinking about it, let me ask someone who's been a victim of this. And that's the Chibok parent, Mr. John Bassa. Yes. Now, Mr. Bassa, this is not theory for you, and you are not talking about this from the viewpoint of looking at it on television. You have actually been involved in this firsthand. Now, you've heard from both the AIG and Mr. Adeshino. Given your own experience, what's your view?
When your enemy change some tactics, you tend to think he has retrieved or he has run away or you have defeated him. It's actually not true. In April alone, Borno State received 64 attacks from Boko Haram, 64 attacks, 31 from Central Senatorial and North Senatorial District, 34 attacks from Boko Haram, Southern Borno alone, out of which 21 attacks was mated on Lassa, Dile, Musa, and other surrounding villages of Margi land, Margi nation. 21 attacks. Those 7 towns received almost like 3-3 in April alone. Goza receives 10 attacks from Boko Haram. 1 from Goshe Sama, 2 Pulka, another one that they cut away food belonging to Chibok IDPs in Goza. When they were transporting it, they rushed to, they entered Sambisa with, and they escaped with that food.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bassa. I just want to make 2 clarifications. I want to ask you to clarify 2 things. First, when you said in April alone, you are referring to April 2019, right?
April 2019, okay. 30 days, 1 month.
That's it. That's the first clarification.
The analysis I'm giving.
The second, one for May, I haven't finished. I haven't finished. The second clarification that I wanted to make was to find out if these figures you are giving us, the figures of attacks and so on, what's your source of the information?
My source of information?
Yes.
Yeah, GCCA, Goza Christian Community Association, is an association formed to, proffer some solution on members who were attacked during the Boko Haram insurgency, beginning from 2013. We formed this association to be able to track where are these people going, because the attack started with Christians in Goza first, when they evacuated the whole Christians out of Goza, and then they now begin again in dealing with those Muslims, good Muslims, who were not supporting their ideology. We formed this association to be able to track all.
Because of our time, can I ask you, today, in spite of the figures you've given us of the attacks and so on, today, can you confirm that there is no local government in any of these areas you've described that is actually under the control of Boko Haram?
Yeah, like Goza, we have only 3 towns that are liberated.
Bassa, I will let you, while you think about it, if you can hear me, Mr. Bassa, sorry to interrupt you there, but we have to go on a short break. You'll give us the answer and those statistics, and we have statistics of our own. We'll look at those 2 sets and talk a bit more after this break.
Yeah.
All right, you're welcome back. It's Inauguration Eve. I would like to welcome you to our coverage. We're looking at 4 years of the administration and the next 4 years, looking at what the government should do, what we expect them to do to make life better for Nigerians. Now, before we went on break there, we were talking about security, and we had one of the Chibok parents, Mr. John Bassa. Mr. Bassa, just continue what you were saying, but as you continue, just clarify for us what you were talking about concerning those attacks, whether they're coming from a place of control or whether it's hit and run, like the government is saying, that they're dispersed and it's just pockets of violence. What sort of attacks?
Yeah, the last time I was here, I told you I am part and parcel of Boko Haram. 44 of my relations who are Boko Haram commandant have been killed. I still have above 50 up to now that they are active and high-ranking officers of Boko Haram controlling the territory from Goza and some part of Cameroon, ruling those areas, you know. And most of the people that are being attacked by Boko Haram are part and parcel of my blood. So there is nothing Boko Haram in those areas will do that I will not get the information in an instant. In an instant.
So are you saying, I'm sorry, are you saying, Mr. Bassa, because I want to take it back to Mr. Adesina, but before I take it back to him, I want to be absolutely sure of what you're saying. Are you saying that Boko Haram is still in control of some territory in the northeast from where they plan and execute these attacks? Is that what you're saying?
Of course. Of course, out of 52 towns I told you from Goza, is only 3 now that you can freely live within. That is Limankara, Goza town, and Pulka. You know, Goza town was liberated by our former president, Goodluck, 1 week before election then, in 2015. And then the new administration liberated Limankara and Pulka. So 49 towns are still empty with nobody apart from the Boko Harams.
Sorry,
Boko Harams. They are the one enjoying those areas, and you dare not go there.
Okay.
Mr. Adesina, I would like you to respond, because you're sitting there and being, you know, the representative of the government, whether you can just confirm what Mr. Bassa is saying.
Thank you. I want to sympathize with him because he has been a first-hand sufferer of this evil called insurgency, and I sympathize with him and his family. He said he has lost about 44 members of his family who are Boko Haram commanders. But that in itself shows that the government is not taking the situation lying low. It means it is taking the battle to Boko Haram, and it is eliminating those who are behind it. But then, talking about infestation of a place and actually controlling a place, there are 2 different things. What we saw as of 2015 was that Boko Haram was sitting on the traditional stools of some emirs. The emirs had fled, and the Boko Haram members were the ones using the palace and controlling the places. Local government chairmen had fled. They were sitting in the offices. They were collecting taxes and tolls. And that is not the situation as at today. If they are prevalent in certain areas, it does not mean they are the law in that area. Pre-2015, they were the law in many areas. The governor was at the villa yesterday, and he said 22 out of 27 local governments in Borno State then were being controlled by Boko Haram.
So, sorry, Mr. Additional, if I can just clarify. Sorry, if I can just clarify. They are prevalent in the areas. They're not controlling the area, but they have infiltrated. They're not controlling. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yes. Yes, yes.
Okay, well,
that is the information government has.
All right, enough for Boko Haram. Let's now come to the herdsmen, farmers clashes, which has been another source of great distress right across the country. That one is not limited to the Northeast. Across the country, we've had these clashes. There was this big idea about ranching that was made at the height of the crisis. How far have we gone with that? And of course, my question is for you, Mr. Additional. You kick off this segment as well so that we get the other views.
Thank you. Well, I would like to say we need to distinguish between the real herdsmen and the farmers who clash once in a while, and the political herdsmen and the farmers. There is a lot of politics to it. The politics side of it is that every criminality in the country is conducted by Fulanis. That is the political side of it, which we know is not true. It is stigmatization, it is hatred, it is malice. That is political. But then the real farmers' husband clashes is being tackled by government. But you notice that each time government comes with a proposal towards resolving the matter, those who have politicized it for their own pernicious gains are the ones that first kick against anything. When you come up with ranching, they say no. You come up with colonies, they say no. They come up with rural settlements, they say no. You come up with this, they say no. Everything, they say no. And then you ask them, what is the way forward? They don't answer. But government is not minding them. Government continues to work.
Okay,
recently, the Minister for Agriculture and Rural Development gave updates on what government has done. The Federal Executive Council recently approved what they call, I think they call them rural settlements. They're like pilot projects where these herdsmen will settle, they will rear their cattle, they will have all that it takes to rear their cattle and do their business. It will come as pilot projects in about 10 states. And from there, we will move forward.
Okay, Mr. Additional, sorry, if I can just interrupt you briefly. Apologies to have to interrupt you. You've said a lot, and we're going to hear from the people because they are on the receiving end of the policies and the plans that the government have. Some of them are also stakeholders and working with the government on security. Let's hear from Comrade Sesi Fumi. She's from the NLC Lagos chair, so it's the chair NLC Lagos. So what will happen, Comrade Sesi, is when you get to the microphone, introduce yourself, and just tell us what security has been in your own experience and what you've done, to work with the government in this regard.
If you have.
If you have.
My name is Comrade Sesi. I'm the chairperson of the Nigerian Labour Com chapter. Well, when I remember this country, water runs down my cheeks. When I remember the past, when we were young and growing up, and the kind of security that was put in place then, and comparing it with what we have on ground now, I need to tell you that I'm very, very sad. When we were young, some years back, 30 years back, 40 years back, 50 years back, we can run around in the evening, playing around, doing moonlight tales tales by moonlight. We can go to the stream. We can go and swim in the stream. We could go to our neighbor's house to eat. We could do all sorts of things that our parents will not even have any fear. But today, can we say it's the same way that we were being brought up in about 40, 50 years ago? Is it the same way? It's not. These days, we can see that insecurity is the order of the day. We have to be very factual. We have to be very truthful to ourselves. If we keep on saying that things are normal, definitely we are deceiving ourselves. And we don't need to deceive. We need to be truthful about the situation of the country. It is the spectators, it is we that can actually tell the government the problem on the ground. We don't want to tell them what they want to hear, but let us tell them the truth on the ground. And the truth on the ground is that there is insecurity everywhere, either in the north, either in the south, either in the west or in the east. There is insecurity. It is only in different areas. The security in the north is about insurgency. The security in the south is about kidnapping, militancy. The security in the southwest is about Yahoo, kidnapping, and all sorts. So these days, you cannot even spread your undies outside to dry in the sun. Even when you are, as a lady, when you are in your period every month, you are afraid so that when armed robber comes in, they will not ask you for your this thing to go and do money rituals. That's the kind of situation that we find ourselves. And it's even very difficult for you to allow your children, your middle-aged children, teenagers, to even go out. We have had so many stories. A teenage lady, that went for a JAMB examination, about 16 years old. Can't we allow them to even move freely around? I have a daughter of about 16 years. I'm always very scared. And she'll be telling me, Mommy, how long will you be following me up and down? When the driver have to go and drop her. And
because there are other people who want to speak, and then we have limited time.
We should take all the questions.
So let me just round up by saying that we should not deceive ourselves. Insecurity is everywhere, from north, from east, from south, from west. And we need part of what we need, and that is the right of the people, security of lives and property.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Rebecca Helen Oyster, I hope that's correct. Yes, you have a question or is it a comment?
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Helen Oyster. I have a question, and it goes to you, sir. You need to speak up a bit, Rebecca.
You need to speak up to the microphone.
Thank you. You talked about technology in guarding our borders, which is a very good idea because we're in the ICT age now, and I really, really like that idea you brought up. But my question is this. Would there be a continuity? And if you're going to implement technology to the border security, is it going to be done by Nigerians for Nigerians? Because we have good IT people in this country that can handle it, but would the government take it back or bring it back to us or take it to the foreign people that don't even understand how our border works? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Rebecca. Let's take one from, yes, a round of applause, please. Fantastic. And let's take one from civil society, a non-governmental organization. We have Yomi Akinshola. Make it brief. If it's a question, is it a question, first of all, or a comment?
Yeah, it's comments.
Comment. Okay, fantastic.
Question.
Yeah, so please make it both brief.
Good evening. This is Yomi Akinshola. My question goes to Mr. Femi Adesina.
Okay.
One of the questions I have is that in Southwest we have challenges with youth that has to do with cultism. You have to tackle it. Cultism seems to be like a local issue, community issue, where you have rival cult guys coming against themselves. At times around Friday, you have people, they can't even, the whole place is grounded. People can't move because of cult activities and rival cult clashes. So what do you think could be done? Because the truth is that our security network is not really localized. It's more central. And I think that's where the majority of the challenge is. So I'd like to ask, what can you do as a federal government representative here? And the second part I would like to talk about has to do with security personnel. Nigeria is largely under-policed. You have too many rich people, powerful people that have the police personnel working for them. There are times I feel very bad. You go to parties, you find police officers carrying the handbags of wives of big people. For me, it's not right. You find a country that is under police like Nigeria, and then you have policemen carrying the bags of civilians. It's absolutely uncalled for. If you want to move forward, you have to scrap that. Every IG has come into office telling us that
will be for you.
Don't worry, I'm noting all the questions.
So for each IG that comes in, they tell you that they are withdrawing every police officer that is attached to some individuals, highly placed individuals. So for me, how do you solve that? How do you increase the number of personnel, police individuals that will man the security force of Nigeria?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's. I think that's enough.
So just to wrap up, Mr. Adesina, enough questions for you, and some will go to our guest over here. He wants you to speak about cultism. Fear, people walking around and feeling that they're going to be kidnapped, and also policemen carrying the handbags of big women and big men. So, Mr. Adesina, over to you. You can hear me, Mr. Adesina? Okay, I think while we're waiting to hear from him, let's hear from you. You are shaking your head and saying you don't want to answer that. I mean, in your time, was that not happening? You find them carrying bags, umbrella, and things like that.
And then maybe you might also want to take it from this perspective that it's a service the police offers. It's not for free. People get paid. The police gets paid for this. We found that out when the Senate conducted an investigation. Because in the Senate, there are 2 or 3 members who are former AIGs like yourself. And they pointed out that the police collects money for these services. It's not done for free, and they're not coerced.
Well, thank you very much. Like I said earlier, I want to believe that these questions are actually meant for the Inspector General of Police. And
you can't want to believe that, too.
Who could have been represented?
I like your comment.
We choose to believe that you can answer.
No, but what's your view? Is the country under police?
To be honest, yes, certainly the country is under police. There's no doubt about it. I mean, going by the United Nations ratio of 400 to a policeman, certainly the number we have now, which is roughly about 370-something thousand. I mean, if I'm right, by the last count, I think we are grossly under-policed.
All right, thank you very much, Ejikoke. We'll come back to that and the other questions. But I understand that we can go now to Eagle Square, I think it is, in Abuja.
Yeah, we have our correspondent, Gloria Mezoke. She's going to talk to us. Gloria, what's happening right now where you are? Yes, continue, Gloria.
President into a second term in office right here at the Eagle Square, where preparations are already in its final stages. Right behind me is a state box, which apparently has been expanded, of course, for such an event as this. And of course, you can also notice that the decoration isn't so elaborate, unlike what we have, in this sort of event that we have in other years past. But again, we know that because it is low-key, that is why we see this sort of environment. The carpets have been rolled out and the workers are in their final stages, of course, cleaning up and doing everything they need to do, because any moment from now, the security will zone off this entire place. The Eagle Square will be zoned off to the public because security is being heightened at every turn in this, around the 3-arm zone where you have the National Assembly, the Federal Secretariat. You see that security is, stationed. And of course, we know about the diversions which will happen. Helping the public to know where exactly to go to and where not to go to ahead of tomorrow's event. And so because it will be low-key, it is expected that the president might not, or Nigerians will not get to see the usual march past or the air displays or even foreign heads of state attending this event, unlike what we used to have in the past. And so just as we're speaking, we have some people coming to inspect what's been going on. Preparations, we had a few days ago the inauguration committee come here to see how preparations are going. Just less than an hour ago, we saw the secretary to the government of the Federation looking at the final preparations. Also, I spotted the head of service rather, right here. And of course, they'll be coming in just before this entire ground is, zoned off entirely to the public ahead of tomorrow's inauguration. Ijoma.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Gloria. We can see there's a lot of activity going on there, talking about heightened security and low-key, but I was making a joke with Ladi to say that it doesn't look very low-key, with all the
with what we're seeing in the background there.
Yes.
But maybe, as you pointed out, it's the march past and the air displays and so on that we won't see tomorrow. And we won't see many of those foreign dignitaries that we normally see.
Yeah, but hopefully we should see them on the 12th of June.
Of June, yes,
So
which is what we have been promised.
To all this.
That's it, which is what we have been promised. But at this point, thank you very much, Gloria. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with the discussions and the questions and comments from the audience. Please remember that this is supposed to be a town hall, so it's not us talking to you. It's actually guests and the audience talking to us.
Welcome back to our Inauguration Eve production. We're looking at everything that should be done tomorrow, what the government should do for the next 4 years. We've been talking about security, and also we're checking in with our correspondents to see what the preparations are in the states where they're in. Talking about correspondents, we can go now to Zamfara State, where we have Kayla Megwa. Hi, Kayla. So what's happening now?
So it's raining right behind me. We're at the inauguration venue. This is the Trade Fair Complex in Zamfara State. And this is where the inauguration is going to happen. In fact, right behind me, some of the structures that they put up have actually fallen off. But they say they're going to be here. There are a lot of workers here trying to make sure that the place is ready for the inaugurations tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Today has been a very busy day. Former Governor Abdulaziz Yari took the time today to speak with the incoming governor. Documentation from the last administration asking him to continue on a lot of the projects, especially Zamfara State University, which they say is a priority project. Also, today they were able to, talk about, the legacy that was left behind from the Governor Abdulaziz Yari administration, where they talked about, how much money that they inherited as debt. He said he inherited over 40 billion naira of debt at the time when he came into office. That's Governor Abdulaziz Yari, and he says he's paid off 80% of that. So that's 20% of debt for Governor Bello Matawalle to carry on as he comes into power immediately after the inauguration comes up tomorrow. They're still going to have their indoors, they're in meetings right now. They're going to have other meetings, they say, and immediately after the inauguration there'll be more meetings talking about the things that they need to do in the coming 4 years. One important thing to note in today's meeting was the fact that they agreed together that we're going to work together for the benefit of the state. In fact, Governor Bello Matawalle himself was asking Governor Abdulaziz Yari for all the support of the APC, because Zamfara State is not just a PDP state, it is a state for people of Zamfara State. So they were asking for collaboration, how they can work together to ensure that the next 4 years are peaceful and that the inaugurations go smoothly. It is raining really heavily right now, but we will see how they'll be able to get everything ready for the inaugurations come tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. right here at the Trade Fair Complex in Gusau.
I'll let you go, because I believe you when you say it's raining. I can hear the thunder in the background there. Yeah, but interesting that she says it will all start at 9 a.m. and there's this plan to collaborate.
And indeed, there will be a lot of meetings because this transition only became evident on Friday.
Exactly, and
so
they're all trying to sort
everybody's,
work it out.
trying to, it's not like in many of the other states where the new person was known well ahead. The Supreme Court came out with the verdict on...
And then there was, some people were calling it reverse jubilation.
Yes, that some people were. So, I mean, he's going to need a lot of support. And I saw some people, talk about the fact that when they said they paid up 80% of the debt, I mean, if you inherited 40 billion and you paid up 80%, I think that's a good thing. If it turns out to be correct.
But
I mean, it turns out to...
Nobody likes to start with, even if it's 1% of
That's
debt.
it.
Don't like to
So,
start
I mean,
like that, but...
there are others who have allegedly left much larger sums in debt. But I guess when we get to the economy, Mr. Arewani and others will weigh in on that and what the impact of that is. But for now, I think we're going to take some more of the questions. If we're able to get Mr. Additional back, I would want him to conclude, to respond to the question about what the youth...
Yes, about what the youth were saying about cultism and fear. If we can get Mr. Additional back to respond to that.
But while we're waiting for him, where's Jeff Igwe?
That's right. Jeff Igwe, UNILAG student of the University of Lagos. I'll let you introduce yourself.
You need to speak up.
You need to speak up and you need to introduce yourself. This is your moment.
Good evening. I am Jeff Igwe. And my question goes like this. I want to know why, and I'm still wondering why in the 21st century like us, like a country like us, Nigeria, we still find it difficult to have a complete database of who we are. We don't even know our numbers. We don't know how many people come into the country. We don't know how many people leave the country. When we have attacks, we say they are people from outside, they are strangers from maybe Libya and all that. So it's very bizarre for a country like us to have such challenges. And again, despite the attacks from people, from the insecurity we're having, even the people meant to secure us, like the police and the SARS, they tend to harass us.
When you say us, what do you mean? Who are the us?
The citizens. The citizens.
Okay, because you need to be absolutely
in Nigeria,
clear.
there is a crime to move around with a laptop or an expensive phone. It becomes it's a problem. So I don't know what the government is doing about it.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, I'm going to have to let you go while we also take this question or comment from Mfoni Yang. He's a youth and media enthusiast. That's what he calls himself. Listen, Mfoni Yang.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mfoni Yang. Two quick ones. He took the first one out of my mouth. We have banking sector, we have the elections, INEC, and we have telecoms. So they have our intimate details. How come we don't have a database? Because if we don't have a database, you can't even do forensic investigation. We can't even track people with their car plate. Their high-level conversation we can't even have because we don't have a database. That aside. Second thing, how is it that he alluded to nationality? I will come back to demography. I think, for lack of a better phrase, the young people of Nigeria have been disrespected. How can we be 200 million and we have tech solutions here in Yabakon Valley? And if we are not be trusted with something like as basic as a logo of airline that never saw the light of day, how can we be trusted with solutions of tech when I know we can domesticate this solution? So I think, how can we harness the creative energy of young people? Because if you say they are the large population, they should be part of the solution.
Okay, thank you. Give him a round of applause, please. And finally, let's have Ayo Latunji with your contribution. And I'm compiling this for Mr. Additional and our other guests to respond to, so that we don't forget where we are. Mr. Ayo Latunji.
Good evening. Ayo Latunji, finance consultant. I have a comment and a question. My comment followed what Mr. Additional said earlier. As the security situation improved from 2015, I'll say yes, it has improved. It would be unfair to say it has not. Are we having a desired situation regarding security? It's a big no. It's not. Okay? That's a comment. I can speak to it, but because of time, there was a time in this country when we have Boko Haram planting flags across certain states in Nigeria. But we don't see that anymore. So that's where my yes comes from.
Okay, and your question very quickly.
Now, the question is this. Nigeria is vast in terms of the terrain. if you travel from Lagos to Kano or anywhere, you will see the nature of peculiarity of the security situations that we have, which speaks back to what the retired AIG said. At what point do we begin to put less emphasis on physical presence for security and focus more on using technology and soft technology to police Nigeria? California is bigger than Nigeria and is a state in the U.S.
Okay, Mr. Landiji, I'm going to have to thank you for your comment and your question as well.
We have been told that we have 9 minutes left for this segment. So we're going to, that's why we took all the questions. And we're now going to go to our guests with each question.
Including those who don't want to
who didn't want to answer. But let me first of all start by introducing Mr. Sheyi Oitayo, I believe. Eitayo, thank you. Adetayo, yes. Pardon me. Of course, Adetayo is the former officer of the Directorate of State Services, the DSS. And I guess maybe the question I will ask you is this issue of database.
Why don't we have a database?
Why don't we have a database? Because I know, for example, that the DSS is supposed to be one of the agencies in possession of such a database.
Okay, let me say this. Likely, it's important for organizations like intelligence agencies because it helps them to be able to do their work, make their work easy. Make the work easier for them to do. But if you look at the peculiarity of a nation like Nigeria, we have there's abject poverty and illiteracy. The climes where you see that operating, the literacy level is so high, where people approach hospitals to give birth. Look, if you check, I see that large percentage of the people are still giving birth at home. Mm-hmm. Such children are not even having records. But in abroad, the moment, even before you give birth to a child, you will give the name. They will document the name. They know the sex. The moment the child is born, they take the palm print and then the footprint, and they document the child within 1 hour of coming to life. Now, for us to have such, okay, he mentioned INEC, and the total people INEC registered was about 65 million Nigerians. And we're talking about 208 million Nigerians.
Well, beyond INEC, all the data capturing they're doing, the driver's license, you capture data. Whatever you're doing, you're capturing all this data. Where are they putting it?
The process was faulty ab initio. Call FRSC today and ask them to present their data. At the end of the day, it's got to have over 40% of those data would not be useful because of the process, the equipment. You see, it's not something that you just give out a contract to someone and say, you know, go and do this for me. And then if you look at the banking sector, how much of the information within the banking sector today are genuine? You see addresses, even bankers are not doing the proper KYC where they need to verify addresses. The issue of BVN, we still have quite a lot of Nigerians that are not banked as we speak today, that will prefer to keep their money at home or do their business with what they have.
So is it an infrastructure problem that they're changing the machines they use at each point so they can't keep up, or it's just the lack of the will to do it?
Altogether, including the innate, the corrupt nature of Nigerians. We always want to, you know, circumvent systems. We always want to look for shortcuts at doing things. And because somebody is willing to give you 200,000 naira to just open an account for him without going through the process, you want to do it. There are still a lot of politicians that are still having accounts that are not connected to their BVN because they know that EFCC is watching. So that is the peculiarity of a nation like Nigeria. And if you go to the interior, the interlands, there are quite a lot of people that are not documented as we speak. So when we want to talk about database is an Herculean task until there is the desire, and this brings everything together, including security, collaboration, education, and training. That three is the solution. Collaboration in the sense that the government needs to collaborate with the traditional institutions. They have a way they talk to their people until when they begin to speak to these people and take them as an essential component of administration in this country, we will never get it right. Two, training.
if you look at the problem that we have in terms of security, the achievement we've gotten so far, the large percentage of it were made possible by the special forces. Those guys that were trained in Belarus and some other countries. They went to Belarus, they went to Pakistan and the rest to train. They were the one that made the larger portion of the sources we had. The question is, since they started that training, how many sets have they been able to send? We left that gap open. If we have been able to train, but now we should have like between 5,000 to 8,000 trained special forces personnel. And we won't be talking about some bandits staying in the forest and then be terrorizing everybody today.
Let me put you on pause because of our time. Mr. Adeshino, I know we can come to you now, and I want you to address the issue of harassment. The harassment, the laptop, and so on. I mean, young Nigerians have lost their lives in droves over this issue, the question of law enforcement, and then, of course, SARS. What can you say very quickly that the federal government is doing to allay the fears of the youth who obviously cannot go about without the two most important things that they seem to be identified with, the phone on one hand, the laptop on the other?
Well, that will not be precisely a presidency matter. It will be more of law enforcement, maybe the spokesman of the police or any of the security agencies.
I'm not going to let you get away with it that time.
It's not strictly a presidency matter.
The vice president gave an order under the previous Inspector General of Police, which led to the creation of what was then known as FSAS, because it was centralized. FSAS. The current Inspector General of Police, upon assumption of office, he's just been confirmed, disbanded that idea and returned the SARS to state commands. During the period that they've been, decentralized once again is when we have had this sudden upsurge again in this harassment of the youth, which is what the person who asked the question was asking. So it's not exactly not a presidency matter. That's where I'm going.
It's still, yes. The police, the first PRO will have more information that is credible than I can have. So I think it's something for him to react to.
It's okay. While we're saying that, let me ask AIG Colquitt.
Yes. To say something.
We cut you during your last comment. Add to that comment the issue of...
And perhaps expand the argument since Mr. Adeshino does not want to...
Yes, the issue of, first of all, over-policing or under-policing, that's one. Two, the question of policemen guarding VIPs and therefore not being available for general police duties.
Well, thank you very much. The issue of policemen guarding VIPs actually can be handled by the Inspector General of Police, so I'm not going to really go into that. But with regards to...
But do you remember that they had said there will be no VIPs at the polls, and we did see a lot of security people and VIPs coming in and out.
That's why Mr. Femi Adesina actually referred us to the police...
So the police PRO to answer the question.
But I can say something concrete about this issue of SARS, the hula baloo about...
Please, go ahead.
I know that much has been done. I also am even... I participate in even delivering trainings in recent times to SARS personnel. Government is actually doing that. There's a reorientation and resensitization of SARS personnel, and they're going from state to state.
Is the public experiencing that reorientation?
Oh yes, there are also stakeholders, human rights activists, and what have you. The civil society are part of it, and of course it's a roundtable discussion, and I think it's been very, very fruitful.
Before I go to Shea, I would like to ask you this question, which so many people have asked me since the matter. One of the police force spokespersons said that as a citizen, you have a right to demand to search a policeman before he can search you.
And that has created a lot of...
And quite a number of people have said that's a death sentence, it's a joke carried too far.
Would you personally do that?
Now, is it...
Well, of course, I served 3 years in the police. I do not see any section of the law that authorizes anybody to search a police officer before searching. So I don't.
Thank you. You've clarified that. Sheyi, you're going to have the last word on this.
Okay. Now,
Okay, I'm very sorry. Before we take you, you're not going to have the last word. Mr. Bassa from Chibok is going to have the last word.
World over, the process is, if you're conducting a search over a premises, you are supposed to submit yourself to be searched. That is the principle, that is the procedure. You see, like I told you, there is an exception to this. When you are found committing the crime, a police officer has a right to search you. You cannot demand for the officer to be searched. But if an officer is armed with a warrant to search, you have a right to demand that before you search my house, I must first of all search you. Because if they do not do that, if they do not submit themselves and the search, and you claim you have found something incriminating in my house, I can say that you are the one that brought the item there. So it is the process. So we should ask world for search warrant first. Yes, for search warrants. The moment you ascertain that this search warrant is valid, you demand that the officer that are here, I need to search you, and they must submit themselves to be searched. That is the law.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bassa, I'm going to give you the opportunity to have the last word from our Abuja studio. You've been a bit quiet, but that's because most of the people who have asked questions didn't talk about the aspect of security that we wanted you to discuss. But as the final word, President Buhari is listening. What is he got to do to change the situation you have described in Chibok?
It's easy if there is a will. It's not the issue of gun or bomb, because I studied the trend of events from the inception of Boko Haram up to today. It requires sitting down, calling people that have direct link with this Boko Haram and let them pour their heart. The government should listen. Out of the dirty or the good things that will come from their heart, solutions might surface. And don't be surprised that the government will, if there is a will of using such solutions, we will overcome. Because I, for one, will not want you to kill any of my relations again, even though he is a Boko Haram member. If there is any other way, I have a lot of ways, but it's lack of backings or support, where which we can, sit down and discuss those strategies and see how we can win them back.
All right.
Without winning them back,
Mr. Bassa,
they remain a threat.
We are completely out of time now, and I'm being reminded every second of that. So thank you very much to all our panelists on this segment. AIG Colcrick, thank you very much.
Please give them a
hand. Adita, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
We want to also thank Mr. Bassa, the Chibok parent. Well, of course, we do know that that matter is still an ongoing one. Some of the girls have been released. The others are still awaiting release. We will also want to thank Mr. Adeshina, although we are made to understand that he will also still be around to join us for the third segment, which is that of anti-corruption.
But before then, we'll talk about the economy, but we have to go.